Thank you very much. The entire board is here and present, so I will call this meeting to order. Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilden. So we do want to start off each of our school board meetings reminding ourselves of our vision, mission, and core beliefs. The vision of our school corporation is for BCSC to be the choice to learn, work, and play. Our mission is to develop expert learners by partnering with our community to invest in people. Our core beliefs: we all can rise to the challenge of high expectations. Learning is most effective when we have choice, flexibility, and see relevance. We thrive when our physical, social, and psychological needs are met. Our community and school district are stronger when we partner with one another. We flourish because of the diversity and variability in our community. Our democracy and democratic institutions are strengthened by civic-minded citizens.
Okay, we have a lot of celebrations tonight. Let's tee up our first one.
We'll jump in with our state wrestling finalists. So we can have our athletic directors step up. Perhaps we'll start with you, Mr. Miller, for Columbus East first.
I'm David Miller. I'm the athletic director at Columbus East High School. I'd like to thank Dr. Roberts and the school board for recognizing our student athletes tonight. I have the honor of introducing Chris Cooper, our wrestling coach. Chris does an amazing job of leading the wrestling program. A few of their accomplishments this year: they won the conference championship for the 8th year in a row. They won the sectional championship for the 8th year in a row, and the regional championship for the 8th year in a row. Also, Coach Cooper picked up his 300th win this year as a wrestling coach. But really, the most amazing accomplishment that the wrestling program had this year was they were academic award winners of the Academic Challenge, which means they had the best GPA amongst all wrestling programs in the state of Indiana. And this is their second year for winning that. We are proud that Chris Cooper is leading our program and proud to call him an Olympian.
Excited to be here tonight. Thank the board and the cabinet for having us and giving me the opportunity to talk about two of our wrestlers. We got Monica McMahon, who is a junior this year, was 15-5 on the season, first-year wrestler. In fact, a year ago, we didn't even have a girls wrestling team. Her and her sister, instrumental in getting that started at Columbus East. I mean, I definitely maybe wouldn't have done it or couldn't have done it if they hadn't have been on me just about every single day to get things going. So, they started wrestling a year ago, and to make the state tournament is incredible in your first year. Monica placed 4th at the girls semi-state, and then the next week placed 3rd at the state finals. So in your first year of wrestling, that's incredible. Also have Talon Jessup. Talon has been wrestling for us as long as I can remember, probably since kindergarten or maybe even before. He's been a member of our wrestling club and always been around. I mean, you talk about reliable, didn't miss a practice all year, does everything we ask, wrestled 97 matches in the off season this year, which is an insane amount. One of the hardest workers on our team consistently as well. Talon placed 7th in the state this year. He was 37-5. 5 losses, 2 were to the runner-up, 2 were to the 3rd placer, and he split with the 5th place wrestler. So both of these two, incredible academics as well. Really high GPAs. Monica was a junior academic all-state. Talon will be next year for sure. And both underclassmen. No doubt in my mind, they're both going to compete for state titles for the Olympians coming up.
Okay, if we could have Mr. Lewis from Columbus North come to the podium.
First of all, I want to thank Dr. Roberts and the school board for recognizing Columbus North wrestling team. I just want to give credit to Coach Joyce and his coaching staff. Coach Joyce has done a fantastic job over the last several years of pushing our kids to be better day in and day out. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed with our young men is that they have become really great advocates for our athletic program on and off the field. Coach Joyce, this is his 4th year. He came in with me, and he's done better every single year. Our boys' wrestling team hasn't been a finalist at state for over 9 years, and I think this is a great job of Matt showing how well he's done with our wrestling kids. So now I just want to say congratulations to you guys, and Coach Joyce, it's on you.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Roberts for having us and for recognizing these 2 outstanding athletes. Asher and Justice, they've been staples in our program for a long time. And for them to reach this level this early, Asher being a sophomore and Justice being a junior, it really shows a testament to their commitment to wrestling and to our program in general. It's been 15 years, I believe, since we've had a wrestler on the podium from Columbus North. I believe it was 2009, and it's been a long time since someone's been here to thank you guys for your continued support of our program and for your support of wrestling in Columbus in general. I'd just like to recognize these 2 outstanding athletes.
Okay, sorry, I was distracted by the cube kid back there, okay.
We are going to move the human resources part of our agenda up to the beginning because we do have 2 principal recommendations tonight. And with state statute being as it is, in that public comments need to be provided, or at least opportunity before any approval, this particular time on the agenda, as it indicates, is just if there are, I don't see any on that topic, so I don't think anybody signed in on that topic. So if there are any public comments for human resources, okay, we'll move into then the approval for our human resources pieces. Perfect. Mrs. Wilden.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Pleak.
We will keep the celebrations going this evening. We'll do one at a time. It's a great time to celebrate the promotions of hardworking educators that are very deserving of these opportunities. And before I get going, before we discuss either one of them, I do want to recognize in the audience tonight, we have interview teams from both schools. We have some staff, colleagues, friends, and family for all of them. So it's great to see those support come out this evening. First, I will ask for approval of the recommendation for Kelly McIntyre to be the CSA Fadria principal beginning July 1.
Thank you. Do I have a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the appointment of Kelly McIntyre as the principal at CSA Fadria.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. All those in favor of appointment of Kelly McIntyre to CSA Fadria Principal, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations,
Okay.
Kelly.
As Kelly is stepping to the podium, just a quick bio for Kelly. Kelly's received her education from Columbus East High School. A graduate at Orange is kind of matching real well with this new school that she's taking over. Got her Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education from Indiana University, and then her MBA from the University of Indianapolis in Educational Leadership. Her experience has been all BCSC. She was a Parkside Elementary School teacher in first, second, and third grades. She then became an elementary curriculum specialist for our corporation. She then serves as assistant principal at Clifty Creek Elementary School and has been director of pre-K since 2022. Again, she is a proud product of BCSC as a Columbus East graduate, but also attended Clifty Creek Elementary School and Northside Middle School. Congratulations, Kelly.
Thank you. So what an honor it truly is to be standing here tonight. And as Dr. Roberts just mentioned, I did grow up in this district. It feels very much like home to me, and in Columbus. And I have worn many hats in BCSC in serving our student and teaching population in several ways, but I have a feeling that this is going to be my favorite hat so far. Having graduated from East High School in 2009, I did retire a lot of orange t-shirts, but I figured those would not be appropriate to wear tonight, so I do have an orange dress, but and you know, Mr. Charles Edwards, he could actually vouch for that because he was there when I was there. So anyways, I'm back in orange today and it feels really great. On a serious note, I want to thank all my friends and family, colleagues, mentors, district leaders and staff, and even some students who have supported me in my professional and personal worlds. 2024 has been a really exciting year for me. 7 weeks ago, I moved into a new house with my husband and my daughter that's 2.5 and currently out in the courtyard, sorry. 6 weeks ago today, we welcomed our second daughter, Violet, who is quiet back there, into this world. And then 3 weeks ago, I was interviewing for this position at CSA Fadria. And today I'm standing here before a whole lot of people who have supported me in accepting that position as a principal at CSA Fadria. So it is not lost on me how blessed I am and how many blessings I can count today. So in closing, thank you, BCSC School Board. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Thank you, Dr. Pleak, Dr. Hack, and many others in this room and outside of this room for giving me yet another reason to count my blessings and for trusting me with another opportunity to serve the amazing community of Columbus and CSA Fadria. I cannot wait to see what the future holds for our school community. Go Falcons.
Go for our second one. I request approval of Dana Bodart as the principal of Mount Healthy Elementary School beginning July 1.
I move that we approve the appointment of Dana Bodart, principal at Mount Healthy Elementary School.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. All those in favor of appointment of Dana Bodart to the principal of Mount Healthy, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion also passes unanimously. Congratulations, Dana.
Dana is also a proud product of BCSC, a Columbus North High School graduate. I'm not sure if that's the blue. We've had blue orange this evening. Perfect. Dana received her education graduated from Columbus North, and then her Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education was achieved at Indiana University, Columbus. She received her Master of Education in Elementary Ed from Olivet Nazarene University and received her Administrative Certificate from Indiana Wesleyan University. Her experience has been in our system as a teacher at first and second grades for Taylorsville Elementary School. She was also a teacher at Schmidt in second grade, Title I, and served as an instructional coach. She was then assistant principal at Parkside Elementary before helping us out and becoming the interim principal at Rock Creek Elementary back in December, and that's what she's currently doing now. Again, I mentioned she was a proud product. Besides Columbus North, she also attended Taylorsville Elementary School and Northside Middle School. Congratulations, Dana.
Dear esteemed board members and school board, I extend my heartfelt gratitude and the opportunity to serve as the principal at Mount Healthy. It is with immense honor and enthusiasm that I accept this appointment, and I am eager to embark on this journey of leadership within our esteemed institution. Dr. Roberts, Dr. Pleak, and Dr. Hack, I'd also like to say thank you to you. Thank you for believing in me. I am deeply appreciative of the trust and confidence that you have placed in me. I am committed to upholding the values of Mount Healthy, fostering a culture of academic excellence, and ensuring the holistic growth and development of every student under our care. Mount Healthy Interview Team Committee, I thank you for the time that you have dedicated to this process and the school. I am eager to collaborate with the dedicated faculty and staff, as well as engage with our supportive parents and guardian community to continue the tradition of educational excellence that Mount Healthy is so known for. Together, I am confident that we will do amazing things and create an environment where the students feel empowered to achieve their full potential. My family, Mike, Abby, Trent, Bailey, Corey, Sydney, Dawn, and Craig. Friends, there are just too many to mention. Your unwavering encouragement has been my guiding light. Whether it was a listening ear, a comforting hug, funny text messages, which I needed a lot, or words of wisdom, you were there for me without hesitation. Your belief in me has been a source of strength, pushing me forward when doubts crept in. I am truly blessed to have such amazing family and friends in my corner. I've spent my whole life in BCSC. If I was not attending as a student, I was reporting daily to my passion. Teachers make a difference. The relationships I have made with Mary Jane and Herb Perry, Mr. and Mrs. Perkinson, Shirley Trapp, Teresa Heine, Deb Davis, Dr. Dana, Katie, there are just way too many to mention, but many of them who are in the room tonight to celebrate with me. You have helped make me who I am today. I am BCSC, and I am very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Again, I would like to say thank you, especially on behalf of myself and Dr. Hack. The interview teams at both schools were phenomenal to work with and very dedicated and passionate for selecting the correct leader, so I do thank them. On to our next. I request approval of all other HR recommendations as presented in the packet this evening.
I move that we approve all other HR recommendations provided in our packet by Dr. Pleak.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz and Mr. Major. All those in favor of approval of the additional human resource recommendations, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Dr. Pleak.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to jump over number 2, Mrs. Wilden, to number 3, because we don't have any additional ones based upon the statutory provisions for that.
Okay, school board member reports. Can I start with, how about Mr. Stenner tonight?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Major?
I've met with both the redevelopment commission and with the health trust, but there's nothing really new right now to speak of.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bryant? Nothing?
Wellness Council, we met February 7th. They talked about the difference, mental health and how to deal with it in our school corporation. they're on top of things, they're working forward, they look good, and so forth. And we got to play bingo. Dr. Roberts won, but I think he cheated. But you know what?
Maybe.
It was fun. It was fun. It was good.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Nellen.
So all three of my committees met since the last board meeting. So the Council for Youth Development met on Wednesday, February 7th. We heard from several different local groups that provide different services to help support local students, including the Indiana Youth Group, which provides an after-school gathering place once per week. We also spent time discussing data from CYD's most recent data collection, and they are hoping to gather data in the future around the impact of social media on our students. The High Ability Broad-Based Planning Committee met virtually on Tuesday, February 15th. The meeting focused mostly on the current process of identifying students who qualify for high ability programming, whether that is the elementary AC program housed at Parkside and Southside, the elementary cluster program at all schools, or the middle school AC program. A total of 2,482 students were tested, mostly in kindergarten, grade 3, and grade 6. And the IU Columbus Advisory Board met on Wednesday, February 14th. We got a report on the impact that introducing sports as an option for students at IU Columbus is impacting their current students and future students. The sports provide an option for IU Columbus students to get involved with peers on campus. It is also attracting new students that might have otherwise gone to other schools to play sports. The comment was made that Franklin College now considers IU Columbus as their #1 competitor for attracting local students. We also heard about the admissions office at IU Columbus is working with BCSC and Charles Edwards to look for ways to remove barriers for BCSC students wanting to go on to college.
Ms. Schultz.
None of mine met this past month.
A couple things here. First off, from the school foundation, one item of note, Dale on the Trail, one of our school board members, I won't say much about it, I'll let Dale talk about it at the end here, but is very graciously is going to embark on a journey that will benefit the school foundation. And then also from the school foundation, the 4th annual Good, Better, Best 5K date has been set, Saturday, April 27, and that is a race in which the school foundation recognizes a BCSC teacher for essentially going above and beyond and being out of the box in their attempt to reach kids. Registration information has been in the last couple of newsletters and can also be found at indianatiming.com. From the legislative front, Indiana School Boards Association Friday wrapped up the short session of the legislature. The School Boards Association tracking list is down to 33 bills, and I have to admit I kind of lost track today, so it, I'm sure, has been whittled down even more. Bills that have moved on to the second chamber have to be, the deadline is today in the House and tomorrow in the Senate for those bills to remain active, and legislative leaders have said that this session will end on Friday, roughly a week ahead of time. So I would expect a flurry of activity at the State House this week. Lots of bills that could be mentioned. Two that have been decided upon, probably the bill that received arguably the most attention, Senate Bill 1, is on its way to becoming law. It has passed the third reading of the House, and it's awaiting signatures from both the Speaker, the President Pro Tem, and eventually the Governor. But the School Boards Association certainly hopes that Senate Bill 1 will make a real impact on reading proficiency levels for elementary kids across the state. And another bill of note that has been decided upon, House Bill 1376, has met its demise. That was a bill that proposed limiting controlled project referenda to only be on the November general election ballot. So ISBA passes on a thank you to the senators across the state that took a stance in opposing that bill. So again, lots of activity in this final week at the State House.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. There was a diversity council meeting about 2 weeks ago. Mr. Edwards leads that. There was a review of data that the team kind of manages and puts together. There were a lot of updates regarding inclusion initiatives that are active in the schools. That was really good to hear. And then there was a review also of another summer camp that will be offered this year, focused on how to help kids get involved in their community, kind of good stewardship. I think it was a big hit last year. They maxed out capacity. They're looking at how they can add additional capacity this year. So for parents who might be interested in that, please be on the lookout. I also wanted to provide an update on our superintendent search. A reminder that Dr. Roberts has announced he will be leaving us. And so we need to find someone to fill those shoes. We had presented a schedule several weeks ago, and we were on schedule with that. Yesterday, the board had an executive session with the university team, who we've asked to help us through the selection process. We reviewed candidates that had applied, and we also aligned on our selection process. So what the interview schedule would look like, what we will walk through with candidates. We are on schedule to start interviews the week after spring break. That was our plan, and that gets us to superintendent in place for July 1st is our target.
We have some cabinet reports for this evening, and we'll start with the Envision 2030 update. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a strategic planning session and focused on this topic and wanted to get it out in front of the public again here this evening. Dr. Bozeman.
Good evening. Thank you again for some time. I will try to be brief. We're making good progress tonight. It's nice outside, so I'll see if I can help continue in that path. Much of the information I'll share with you tonight you've already seen. As Dr. Roberts mentioned, we shared this in a strategic planning session. Did get a couple of questions from Mr. Schultz that I'll try to address within the presentation here. And then we have just a little additional information on next steps with the new elementary school to share. But as I said, most of this information you've seen, but in an effort to be open and transparent with you all and the public, we did plan on showing this over the course of two board meetings, this being the second. This slide, we started working on this, gosh, almost a year ago. But this is from the original presentation of needs that we've identified, that we've brought to you and to the community. And with this first phase that we'll discuss tonight, most of those items are being addressed in some capacity, not to completion, of course, but all are being addressed in some capacity, with the exception of the expansion of space at the high schools to address the PE and extracurricular needs, as you can see there. We have 8 projects listed within phase 1 of our Envision 2030 project scope. A couple of these I can speak to now, and a couple I'll speak to in a little more detail here shortly. So Johnson, phase 1, that is just relocating Bright Beginnings from McDowell to Johnson as part of the phase 1 project there. New elementary on this west side of town I'll speak to in a couple of minutes. The east and north C4, that's most around dental area of existing square footage in those buildings, more at east than at north. Central Middle School is really just one STEM lab, all new technology and some new furniture in that building. North side Middle School, on the other hand, is a full building renovation. That building, as you're aware, has not seen substantial renovation since at least the early 90s, and part of the building and before that for other parts of the building. Smith, similarly, is in need of renovation. It's a high priority site. McDowell, I spoke to a minute ago in connection with Johnson. We're interested in moving CVP out of leased space to McDowell. And then Mount Healthy, also a high priority site, not so much in need of renovation necessarily, but to improve the learning environment there, because as you're aware, that is still an open concept school which needs addressed. Some photos we have here, and they're around the room, and this presentation's been shared with all BCSC employees as well a couple weeks ago, just for your awareness. I won't speak much to this, but you've seen this material already with some example and some photos of the scope of work in terms of need. The new elementary on the west side of town in other cities, the design, the layout, et cetera, for this building has not yet been determined, of course. I'll speak to that here in just a bit. But we do own 23 acres on the west side of town, just south of the West Side Community Church that is targeted for this site. C4 expansion at East and North High School, as I mentioned. Smith Elementary, full renovation to that building, as I had mentioned. These are just photos from Parkside Elementary that may look familiar. Similarly, we have not met with the staff at Smith yet to determine what that layout is and what those needs are, so we don't have renderings. Similarly, at Northside Middle School, these are photos from other projects and what things could look like at Northside Middle School. But that's a list of the needs at that building. As I mentioned, that's a high priority site in need of renovation as well. And Mount Healthy, I spoke to as well. We currently have, we're using a construction manager as constructor, and you actually have an approval item on your agenda to receive bids for this. Currently, Maxwell is our construction manager as constructor for the Schmidt and Parkside projects. We are pleased with that framework, so we plan to continue that in other packages. We've packaged these 5 projects, basically because of size and scope and complexity, into 3 packages for bidders that we will have probably 10 or so different construction managers solicit bids for. So they're packaged there, as you can see on the screen. Some of the smaller projects like Johnson will be a traditional design bid build that we'll do with CSO and contract out outside of the CMC. This is material you've seen before, but this is the timeline. These are the timelines related to that CMC approval. And some more information about the new elementary on the west side of town. The additional information that's on your screen now that was not last time are those dates, March 25th and 27th. So we have 4 firms that I'll show on the next slide of who they are that have been invited to help design this elementary school with CSO and our involvement. They will come to town on March 25th and 27th at 4 o'clock. We'll do 2 presentations each night. So 2 firms will go on Monday and 2 firms will go on Wednesday. Those are open to the public. We will host those at the West Side Community Church, which is the neighboring property to the school, as you're aware. That sanctuary seats up to 300 people. I'm not sure we'll have 300, but we do expect a lot of folks and a lot of interest in there. So we'll send out plenty of reminders and marketing opportunities with that, but that is around the corner. So those firms are coming to town, and this is my formal announcement of that event. So I hope you will be there, and I hope many folks from our community will be there as well. These are the 4 firms that the Cummins Foundation has invited to help design this new elementary school. We're terribly excited about this, as I've said that word many times in your presence over the past year or so. Jim Funk from CSO and I met with all 4 firms separately last week, about a half day each one of them. They similarly are very excited to be considered to work on this project with us. We had a good visit with all 4 of them. We met at Parkside Elementary and walked that building and talked a lot about what 21st century learning environments look like, what the needs are of our students in Columbus are, what we're trying to achieve. And it was time well spent. So 3 of these 4 firms have been involved in consideration for projects in Columbus previously. A couple have participated in Exhibit Columbus, so they know Columbus well. And they are excited to be here to be considered. So just as a reminder, the way this process works is, as I mentioned, they will come to town March 25th and 27th at 4 o'clock at the West Side Community Church. and they will give a public presentation on their firms in response to our RFP. So we've given them 34 pages of material to look through and some questions to answer, such as talk about your project team, how would you support what we need in Columbus, how would your design reflect the cultures of the community, et cetera, et cetera. So they'll spend about an hour that night talking about that and going through all these things. We have not asked them for a conceptual design of the building. I want to be clear about that. That would not be fair to these folks, and frankly would not be fair to our committee to select on a conceptual design by somebody that the building may not look like that. But we've also spent some time with them explaining, these are taxpayer dollars, and we need to be fiscally mindful, and they understand that and respect that as well. I mentioned last time we were together, we have a committee of about 15 people or so that will serve on that selection committee. We'll meet April the 4th, I think, as a group, and then bring a recommendation to the board for your formal approval on April 15th for the final selection of that design firm. Mr. Nowlin and Mr. Stenner represent the school board as that group. This is new content as well. This slide was not on the last presentation. I won't read it to you, but you can see some of the timelines we have drawn in the sand here, written in pencil, so to speak, on the new building. We will start soon on that design team creation. So different than Schmidt and Parkside, those design teams are able to be formed by existing teachers and staff in the building. That's not the case on a new building, obviously. So we'll need to pull folks from across the district for a good representation of that. Some folks are already starting to ask about what does districting look like for this. So I've added some bullets here that we'll work with an outside consultant over the course of really the next 2 calendar years and determine what that looks like. That will engage lots of stakeholder groups and lots of feedback sessions, et cetera, with a tentative date of bringing a recommendation to the board in December of 26 on what boundary lines would be affected by the creation of a new elementary school and any other adjustments need to be made in other schools at that same time. So we will form a committee. It's not a facilities committee, which would then bring the recommendation to the school board for your review and approval. This is my last slide, and then Dr. Phillips has one at the end for some financial information. This is the same material you've seen before. I'll add a couple of notes here. You can see the timeline at the top for Parkside and Schmidt, which I think you're aware of. On the same topic of the 12th elementary, we've talked pretty openly when asked, especially in community sessions, of where does that 12th elementary fall in terms of priority? Does it happen in a first phase? Does it happen towards the end? Our demographic study that we've been talking about for the past year has really indicated. So it's in the first phase for that reason. The data suggests that we have the need. Of course, I know you're aware of that. We've talked about it many times. One other thing I'll mention up here is you'll see on the future phase projects at the bottom that those are the other projects that we've been chatting with you about over the course of the past year. They're in alphabetical order, no particular order down there, but East and North Project 2, that includes both the need we have to expand C4 programming to meet the needs that I know you're aware of, and also that extracurricular, those projects as well in there. We did, as a team, chat about trying to, we talked about welding quite a bit early on, and we had some sort of rendition at East of some welding solution and a few other C4 solutions in that first phase. But the more we talked about that, frankly, the more unsettled we were on some things such as, should we have welding at North and East both, or should it all be at East, or all be at North, and that sort of thing. So we didn't get settled on a great solution for that. So because of that, Mr. Edwards is going to work with the team, get some feedback from some stakeholders, families, and students and staff to determine what the best course is, and we'll put that into a future project here. So, and then Mount Healthy, you may see that number on there at $8 million. That's actually grown. The more we have spent time on that. That's grown. I think it was about 3.8 originally. Now it's 8. We'll do what it takes at Mount Healthy Elementary School. CSO is starting to tour that building now. They know the building well, but they're starting to spend more time in there in the coming weeks. And then the schedule you see shows some pre-design work, or schematic design work rather, in January of 25. I actually met with the staff at Mount Healthy a couple of days ago, and we'll probably meet with them in the fall to help get some feedback on that. So we'll do what it takes at Mount Healthy Elementary School. If that number needs to grow, then that number will grow, but we'll take care of the needs there. The last thing I'll mention about Mount Healthy is that's listed as CMC there, but you may remember it was not one of the packages on the previous slide for CMC. So our intention right now is to put that through a construction manager design, but we didn't want to put it out to bid now if we're not going to start any work out there until, the end of 25 or early 26. I'll let Dr. Phelps speak to the bond issue estimates here a bit.
Thank you, Dr. Bozeman. So this just lays out the schedule of when bonds would be issued based on the construction schedule that was on the previous slide. And so we intend to issue the first set of bonds, to come to you for approval to issue this first set of bonds probably in May or June. And that first bond issue would be for approximately $44.1 million principal. That's an estimate at this point in time. All of these numbers will be finalized and in the public documents when we hold our first hearing later in the spring. The reason we're going to wait till later in the spring and the summer to start that bond issue is so that we have the assessed value that comes out in August, and we can have an accurate prediction of what the tax rate might actually be for the following year. So that first column there is actually all the dollars that Mr. Funk has projected we would spend on all of the projects that Dr. Bozeman described during the remainder of 2024, as well as through the end of 2025. And then the next column is the bond that we would issue in late 2025 for all of our spend in 26, so on and so forth going forward. So the first set of bonds, that bond issue for $44.1 million in principal would then also have about $24 million in interest over 19 years and at an assumed interest rate of 5%. Today, we'd probably be closer to 4 projections. They always tend to overestimate on what it's going to cost us, and then if it comes in lower than that, that's to our advantage. If we were not to issue these bonds, this $44.1 million in principal, 24 in interest, that's $68.1 million in total payments over the 19 years. The tax rate in the community, assuming we didn't do any other debt issues, would go down by about 5.5 cents in that, each of those 19 years. So 5.5 cents would be the decline. Again, all of this is laid out in the final numbers. These are estimates at this point. Those final numbers will be in the documents presented to the board in the spring and are every time that we issue bonds. But we had some questions from the board earlier, so that's the detail on the first set of bond issues that actually will come to the board for the first time and probably in May.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks. Any questions from the team?
I got one or two. One, I want to thank for the feedback on Mount Healthy. I'm really excited to see its prioritization out of all the schools I've toured. I mean, that was one that I received the most looking forward feedback to the construction, just given the open concept. Does the scope of work now try to mitigate, given that it's increased the sound issues across these classrooms? Is that what kind of adjusted the scope upwards towards the $8 million?
Is that actually, and again, I say this without really getting in deep with the staff there yet, but that $8 million is reflective of a small proposed addition to the building, which is a little counterintuitive because we actually, as part of the project with the 12th, we'll actually have lower enrollment and get Mount Healthy back to where it was designed to be. But the thinking right now that's reflective of the 8 is add a small addition, which then, which I can't tell you if it's 2 or 3 classrooms in there, but then that gets the condensation of so many classrooms in the existing space a little more out and flexible so we can have some common learning spaces in the middle, separate those classrooms a little bit more. So that's what the reflection is of the change.
And then the other question is around the 12th Elementary itself. I mean, I remember going back and I was given information that my memory may be a little bit fuzzy, and I'm trying to make sure I understand, is a lot of this was predicated on the Garden City project. Do we have an update from the city of where that stands? And I guess, are we getting, is the wagon in front of the horse, so to speak, of this coming ahead of their approvals?
It's not contingent on that project. So if you remember, the demographic study was based off of census data, which was current bodies from the 2020 study, obviously, and projected enrollment of those families, not including any potential or rumored or expected growth. So that's my way of saying the need exists outside of Garden City. So even if the Garden City project, City View project, as it's tabbed, doesn't launch, we still have a need that Southside's going to be over capacity in the I would say mid to long term, but it's really short term from what the data we have. So that Garden City View project just exacerbates the.
And when you mean the demographic study, you mean the study that said that the preference is an elementary school 700 or less?
No, the demographic study was, we do those every 10 years. That was from Dr. Brudvig out of Northern Kentucky.
Is that the 2021 study?
It was given to us in 21, yep.
Yeah, because I was confused because the 2021 study actually showed a decline in population over time. It had inflection opportunities, and I believe the data I got from Dr. Phillips was Southside's ADM is down slightly, not very much, and Mount Healthy's is also. So in reality, these schools could hold into a holding pattern. It's not ideal. I agree with what the feedback from the community was, but because it's not an elementary school of 700 or less, which is what was the feedback, but there's no impending undue pressure on these that I saw as of now in that 2021 study that was given to us. Was there new, I was just making sure there's no new students that are added as reflection of that study from last year that was provided.
The 21 study is the most recent demographic study that we have, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Mr. Stenner?
When we were on the slide looking at the construction manager as contractor, or contractor as construction manager, I can't remember the acronym. You mentioned that we're using Maxwell now for a couple of projects in that role, and you mentioned that we were committed to that going forward. I wanted to make sure you're committed to using the CMC style of contracting, not necessarily all the business would go to Maxwell.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. Okay. Yeah, we have to publicly bid that, so we have an RFP that's been prepared, and then as we did previously, firms will submit responses to that, and then we'll bring a selection to you for approval. But yes, that needs to be publicly bid. Yes, and just for clarification, that not all projects from phase one are under CM, as I mentioned before. So thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bozeman and Dr. Phillips. Appreciate it. Okay. We have another agenda. I'm first reading policy 5830.
Jumped ahead too soon. Yeah, so in front of you, two things. In your packet, you had a revision for a policy on student fundraising, which is number 5830. We've added another copy in front of you tonight just because we added another sentence. It doesn't change the content really of the policy. It just stresses that is in certain situations that when we use a raffle, it has to make sure and comply with Indiana law. So the reason for putting this policy in front of you is because sometimes you have practice and policy that start to get spread apart from each other. There's a gap. And what we notice is we've had the practice over the last few years of allowing the sale of raffle tickets. We've even approved those under fundraising. But our policy didn't state that. So it was using old language from Indiana Code Indiana code changed in about 2018. This was last revised in 2017. But there is, state statute does allow for students, even those under 18 years of age, may sell tickets or chances for a raffle. They can't participate in something that's a game of chance, but they can sell raffles for a chance. We did add in the sentence that you see in front of you tonight. However, any fundraiser involving games of chance must comply with Indiana law, including obtaining the appropriate license or permits. So we just wanted to stress that a second time. That sentence is earlier in the policy and was before, but we wanted to stress that when we're saying that students are allowed to sell raffle tickets. So this is a first reading, just wanted to make sure and get that in front of you. Again, the rationale being that we're approving fundraisers where students might be selling raffle tickets over a period of time, and just wanted to make sure that practice and policy are aligned. I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the team? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mrs. Woodall.
Okay, next we have public comments. Just a reminder of our policy regarding public comments. Everyone will get 3 minutes to speak. If you do want to speak here, when you walk in the door, there's usually a blue sheet on the door or on the table, so you can sign up. We ask that you put your name, kind of the context of what you would like to speak to. You'll get 3 minutes. There will be a reminder here. We stick to 3 minutes, so I'll wave and do things to distract you and try to get you to move on if we get close to that. Please do not use names of specific individuals or specific titles. It's kind of the same thing. We want to talk in generalities if there's a concern. You can pass if your intended point has been made. So if someone comes to speak and they say the exact same thing that you were intending to say, you can pass, or you can say, I agree with the person who just spoke prior. I also ask for the audience, no cheers or jeers. It can be really intimidating to stand up in front of a team and speak. And so I just ask that we hold all comments and things like that. You can always speak to someone afterwards if you'd like, okay? So with that, we will go ahead and get started. The first person on our list is Mr. Kermit Key. Okay, thank you, Kermit, I appreciate that. Next is Sandy Watts.
I want to say that I read the book, People Kill People. It's 107,253 words. It was brought to our attention a year and a half ago. I read it then, but I revisited it. I feel like I'd be remiss to talk about a book I haven't read. I would expect no less of my elementary students throughout the years. Yes, there is a gun on the cover. It is a dot-to-dot gun. If you find this concerning, I find it very concerning, the mass murders that are occurring across the United States. I also find it concerning then for children that go into our big box stores. You see racks of guns, you see cases of guns. They're next to the toy department. So that kind of sends a confusing message, I think. In the book, there is a comment, 610, 6 reasons. Someone will fire, someone will die. Guns just make it easier. If you read the book, you find out it's not the teens that are doing the killing, it's the adults. It's a man who is racist who accidentally kills his wife. It's a child who, a gun is unsecured, accidentally kills his aunt. These are the people that die in this book. There are many lessons. There's racism, there's sexism, there's anti-Semitism, there's child abuse and more. There's a young man named Rand. We've not been told his name. That's his name. The trauma he felt because he felt he was alone. He didn't know anybody else had this trauma, but he made the right choice. He decided not to kill the perpetrator because he wanted to be a policeman and he wanted to leave a valued life. That's a message that has not been told. I think it's important we know those. If you did not see 60 Minutes, I recommend that you watch it. It's on YouTube. It's about Moms for Liberty and gun violence. It kind of foreshadows and tells what we've been going through during this time. In closing, I want to read the dedication in this book. This book is dedicated to the far too many victims of gun violence. and to the loved ones who grieve for them. Sending love and light with a special nod to young people that have been taken too soon. The future expected you, now it mourns for you. That's what this book is about, and that is the main focus. It's not 2 pages, it's 107,253 words. And I'm gonna leave quickly because I'm late for my book club. So thank you very much, and thanks for all you're doing and keeping and trying, and thanks for all of you that keep reading all these books for us, so thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. I have Ann Cooper. I hope I got that right.
Sorry, I work in healthcare. I don't have the best memory. So I have some questions about the proposed or past health clinic or health clinics in the BCSC schools. And if you'll forgive me, I have a lot of questions. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, microphone, sure.
Microphones making me nervous. Okay, I have a number of questions about the proposed or planned health clinic or health clinics in the BCSC schools. And if you'll forgive me, I have a lot of questions. Please help us understand how this is going to work. What is the plan going forward? What is the third party, and by third party, I mean not an insurance, but the people providing the clinic. So what is the third party's plan for the clinic, and how is it to operate? How is this to be funded? Is this federal, state, local monies? Who is responsible for any liability involved? For example, who is responsible if a student has something happen, like an allergic anaphylactic reaction, seizure, fall, etc., on the way to or from the clinic, whether that be at the student's school or on BCSC transportation? And what about actually in that clinic? And speaking of transportation, what kind of medical training do the drivers have? Will the student's parents be present at all clinic visits? What kind of relationship will the clinic have with the student and parent, medically, financially, etc.? Who is responsible for keeping the medical records updated and reporting visits to the student's primary care provider or other providers? Will BCSC follow up with a third party to ensure that proper care is being given to students and that local, state, and federal law is being followed? What kind of providers will be in the clinic? Is it an MD or DO, PA, nurse practitioner, CMA? It would be very helpful to have these answered in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Okay, next on the list, we have Jason Major. So later on in the agenda, we actually have a book review to discuss that Mr. Major had submitted. And so if anyone outside of the board had submitted a book review and it was up for decision, they would have an opportunity to be part of the public and speak. So he is acting as part of the public.
I don't see any kids here, so I think we're okay. All right, I'll do my best to stay within my 3 minutes, but I wanted to make sure that people understood my perspective from my words and not words that have been put in my mouth by other people in the community that have attempted to degrade my character by spreading negative and false narratives. I've been interviewed by at least 3 East students in the last year for senior projects specifically about this book, and my position will remain consistent from discussions with them and my statements tonight. I know it has been stated that I'm trying to attack different cultures, lifestyles, and beliefs with my attempt to push for a restricted section. My concern is that we're presenting material to students that includes age-inappropriate elements. Minors as young as 14 have the ability to seek out this book, and this age group is generally not capable of understanding more adult-level thoughts. What I will read shortly is clearly beyond that capable of a 14-year-old to comprehend. Quite honestly, I don't know most adults will comprehend the 2 pages I will read. I fully anticipate this book will be deemed acceptable by this board and remain in the library. However, I would like to challenge the Republic to publish these pages that I'm going to read. I'm sure copyright law will be referenced as to why they will not, but would like to challenge that they do this. The use of a restricted section would be ideal, ensuring that parents are able to understand what is available to their child and allow them to define the limits for which their child should be allowed to roam within the library. It is not feasible, rational, or reasonable to expect a parent to read every book that a child can encounter. Parents have the ability to set limits on technology. They need to have the limits set in a library. The following is an excerpt from the book People Kill People by Ellen Hopkins. Has anyone ever showed you how to feel good? What do you mean? You really didn't know. Has anyone ever touched you like this? This is all in reference to a 9-year-old boy and a grown man, okay? He pulled you onto his lap. One arm remained possessively in control while the spare hand dropped to stroke his crotch of your jeans. That part didn't hurt. In fact, you were surprised that your wiener responded positively. Still, you knew it was wrong, so wrong, and you tried to get away. Oh no, not yet. The hand holding you gripped tighter while the other unzipped your pants and yanked them off in one swift, well-practiced motion. You struggled but couldn't come near to matching his physical strength. He unbuttoned his own fly, freeing his sorry erection to worm its way between your butt cheeks. He slapped a hand over your mouth. This might hurt a little if it's really your first time. Let's see if it is. If there was one small saving grace, it was he possessed a small pencil dick. Still, when he drove it inside you, the pain was exquisite, and you screamed into his filthy palm. But your pleas carried no weight. The wind blew cinder-heavy ashes into your face, and he grunted like a hungry pig over and over until he was finished.
Thank you, Mr. Major.
When he
I
shriveled
appreciate
out, I've
No,
got just a slight bit more, and we've allowed people to go over in the past.
But I paused
And I
them,
will-
and I think you're at a point where you can pause. If you would like to continue, we do have time at the end for board comments, but I think
I'll go ahead and finish real quick.
Mr. Major, please, as a board member.
I will expect then the same expectation to stop at 3 minutes for everyone else.
You paused, which is my practice. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to Barb Wills.
Hi, I'm Barb Wills, and I also am speaking about the book appeal. First, I looked up what the Indiana requirements are for a librarian. Did you know they have to have a teaching license? I didn't actually know that, but I knew that they did need certification. So I feel like our librarians are well-versed enough to know whether a book should be in their library or not. Also, it is very clearly stated on this book's page that it is for 9th to 12th grade. It will not be in our elementary schools. It will not be in our middle schools. It will only possibly be in our high schools. Has the right to choose what their child can or cannot watch, read, and view. But I have a question for you. Have you read the entire book? I did. And yes, those pages are heart-wrenching, but there are 9-year-old children in our community who have dealt with that, and they don't want to be felt like they're left alone. If this book helps one person feel like they're not alone, isn't it worthwhile? And I will end there.
Thank you, Ms. Wills. Sorry. Megan Johnson.
Actually, I'd like to use my 3 minutes and finish what he had to say. Was that all?
That's where I was from there down.
Okay. Sure.
I've been coming to board meetings for 3 years. I've witnessed several people go over the time limit. It's unfortunate that fellow board members will not allow people to finish speaking, so I'm going to choose to finish for him. It pains me to say stuff like this. When he shriveled out of you, he let you go, and you crawled away, bare knees and hands through the dirt. You would have run, except there was no place to go but further into the wilds, and it grew colder and colder as the distance between you and the campfire lengthened. Once you evacuated what you could, washed with frigid stream water, you wandered back to camp, claimed your jeans, and crept into a sleeping bag. That wasn't so bad, was it? Dean asked. From within the warmth of the adjacent bag, here's the deal. If you tell anyone what happened, I will come after you, he vowed. I will hurt your mother. Oh, and I will kill your ugly dog, too. Again, I understand the judging a book as a whole, but at some point we need to wait until the storm is over to know it was raining. People daily are judged by a single or a few events that occur in their life. I'm sure there are a great number of people in prison or jail that made one mistake and were judged by that incident alone. I hope now that you have heard my words, that you better understand my perspective. This book contains extremely graphic descriptions of pedophilia and rape. Pedophilia and rape. What is wrong with you people? The student in high school is as young as 14, will not have the ability to understand this topic. Thank you for letting me explain Jason's positions. What have we become? Feel free now to vote to allow this in the library as you do. Please have the courage to vote by roll call vote. Thank you. Should I go down the line? Is this what I do?
No, Ms. Johnson, we will vote.
handle that?
We will vote, yeah.
Yes, awesome.
Yep.
And for the rest of the people that are watching, that are caught up in all this back and forth stuff, we are literally beating a dead horse. We're literally beating a dead horse. They're not going to do anything about the sexual content in your child's library. Do your due diligence and find out for yourself. Protect our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Nancy Merbitz.
Hi. First, a quick word hearkening back to the new school being built. I just wanted to throw out a thought I had as that was being discussed and then get on to another quick word about the whole book thing. I would like to encourage you all to consider, if it's not already being done, evaluating the presentations for, who will design the school based on factors of environmental, energy efficiency and environmental design. I think in the long run, that ends up saving money. I don't know if you could go as far as LEED certification, but anyway, that's a thought. If taxpayer dollars are going to something, thinking about the long term. I have spoken before referring to the national agenda that of the Purple for Parents and Moms for Liberty and the candidates that ran for the board, and two of them that were, at least at that time, affiliated with Purple for Parents, which has a agenda that's anti-public education. So I've said that before, I will just say it again. The true goal of the people that they've affiliated themselves with is to privatize education. So they move from book banning stuff to endless questions about the budget, which of course that has, that they have a right to question that, but it's been a lot. And then one of their affiliates impugning the integrity of somebody who's going into, leaving his position after a stellar career and impugning his integrity. And my last thought on this is wondering what kind of dual role conflict there is with having somebody on this school board able to present a complaint about a book and then is going to vote on it and then gets to talk in public comment, and for just future consideration, consider whether or not a board member can bring a complaint as a member of the public when he or she is in a role of making decisions about public complaints. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Merbitz. Okay, those are all the public comments we have tonight. Dr. Roberts.
Okay, we'll move into the request for approval. The first item is old business and includes the minutes from the regular school board meeting of February the 5th and the strategic planning session of February the 19th. I would ask for your approval on those minutes, please.
I move that we approve the minutes of the 2 meetings that are listed in our agenda under 5A.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank
I
you,
have a
Mr.
comment. I think there's a mistake, but I might be wrong. On the item of, it was, back in that meeting, it was item 6H, which was about buses. And it says Mrs. Wielden and Mr. Schultz abstained from the vote, and it should be Mrs. Wielden and Mr. Major, I believe.
Page 30.
Yeah.
I saw that too.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen.
So I move that we
amend
the minutes to show that correction.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay.
Get my name off of it.
Okay, so we are now voting to amend the minutes.
Yes.
There's one more thing, and I'm sorry, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe I was referred to as Mr. Todd once in the minutes too, so that probably should change to Mr. Grimes.
Okay.
I didn't catch that.
Sorry.
Okay.
You can call me Mr. Todd.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, I guess maybe that's a motion.
I second that motion.
Okay, can we have a clean motion? I'm going to ask someone to make a motion with both changes as an amendment to the minutes. Could you do that,
Wait,
Ms.?
do you want me to put them together?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
So I make a motion that we correct item 6H to reflect that it was Mrs. Wielden and Mr. Major that abstained. And I also move that if there is a spot in the minutes that says Mr. Todd, we correct it to Mr. Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen. Do we have a second for this amendment? Thank you, Mr. Major. Okay, all those in favor of amending item 5A per Mr. Nellen's description, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, we now have an amended minutes. Would anyone like to move to approve those? I think we have to.
Oh, we need a new motion to?
I think you have to approve the
Okay,
amended
so I
minutes.
move that we approve the old minutes as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
All right. No, thank you.
I think we're good.
All right, this next one is old business as well. We went ahead and separated it out for you. So requesting a determination regarding the contested library book in your packet was a recommendation in terms of adhering to the decision of the committee that reviewed the book.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we approve the recommendation of the committee as written in the board packet.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Any discussion from the team?
I'll keep my comment very brief. As an educator, sitting here as an educator in a rather unique setting, just last week I had a conversation with a student who has read several books by this same author. And unprompted by me, she referenced this book explicitly. And it's just a couple pages, I believe, after Mr. Major, the selection that was read this evening. There's a poem in there about human resilience. And that student spoke to me and could almost recite the poem verbatim. And it was, and she made some comments that this author has helped her immensely. And I know that, I have read the book, and I'll be the first to admit it's rough. And, in the rather unique setting where I teach, I can assure you there are kids that have been through many more if you put them on, very unspeakable, horrors that are every bit as bad or worse in some cases than are mentioned in this book. And I think, any chance that we have to be able to, and again, I sit up here with first and foremost in my mind, the best interest of kids. And you know, somebody made the comment, if it saves one kid, it's worth it. And I'll stop my comments there, but I just thought it was important for me to let people know where my stance is and why.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. To be clear, it's not listed here on the screen, but in our board packet was a decision to uphold the decision of the review committee and maintain the book in the library. Okay, just want to be clear.
I do also have a couple comments, right? I know where I'm going to be on this decision, and that I'm at peace with it. I will say it's been inferred that I have association with outside groups. I can tell you for sure that's not the fact. In governance, which is what we do here, you regularly have to make tough choices that may or may not please a group, but in my opinion, you always stand strong to your principles. I've read the book. Ms. Hopkins tackles the tough subject that we have in the United States. I actually believe there's a couple of Ms. Hopkins books in my own personal library based on my recent review. But it clearly possesses R-rated material in the forms of racial slurs, excessive profanity, gun violence, sexual assault, and child rape. General access is a concern that can lead to long-term emotional distress, especially those with traumatic pasts that may knowingly or unknowingly get emotional triggers from that material. As a father of children that have suffered what those 2 pages say, I can tell you there will be a child hurt as well when they accidentally walk onto those 2 pages. There will be a reinvigoration of their emotional trauma. And it's hard for me to say that, but I feel an obligation as a person that represents the foster care system and also children from that system. There will be children hurt. Interestingly enough, during a board meeting, I was not present, I was on a work trip, January 8th. This same board joined a class action lawsuit that focused on the impact of social media companies that are having on the mental health due to providing adult levels of content to minors. This same content is just in a different form. In that lawsuit, the United States Surgeon General notes, and I quote, "Evidence indicates children are exposed to harmful content ranging from violent and sexual harassment, which impacts future state medical conditions." We've talked a lot about the mental health crisis. This is where it starts. In joining this class action lawsuit, BCS is quoted in our Republic as stating, and I quote, "We're going after the major social media entities that have lax rules in place in terms of how people can access them. We're just hoping to enact some changes in some of the rules and regulations to better protect our kids as they grow and mature and their brain develops. These discussions are both about adult content, the same adult content, but one is written in books and one is written on an online social media platform. The children are the same. The brains are the same, and they're maturing at the same rate. The content is the same. But in one, we want firmer rules to the point that we're willing to join litigation. And here, no rules. And we want to have rules and around no parental content on our own. We want no parental consent on our own policies. The lead attorney on this exact class action lawsuit that is now representing BCSC, so essentially us, publicly stated in an interview, and I quote, that the level of adult content in the form of sex, profane language, racism, violence, and harassment is atrocious, and we need firmer rules with these companies that also help drive parental engagement. There's never been a desire to ban. There's been a desire to get parental consent. Why the difference now? Why are we not going to hold ourselves to the same standard that we are going to litigate companies for? It is a principal obligation, and I said at the beginning, we have to stand by our principles. If we're going to hold a social media company to it, we better darn well hold ourselves to the same rules. Parents need to lead. It needs the parental consent to get to that information. They know their parent or their children the best. The parent sits at the head of the table. Therapists, pastors, family members, teachers sit around, but at the end of the day, the parent can decide whether that child can handle that content. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Okay. I'll ask the audience, please give us a minute to make our decision. Any other comments from the board? Middle of our motion? Okay. Mr. Major, can you confirm your participation in the vote tonight?
What's that?
Just confirm your participation in the vote tonight.
I already told Mike.
I just
earlier,
wanted it to
yeah.
be on record.
Yeah,
Yep.
I never had the intent or plan
Yep.
or thought that I would be able to vote on this because I was the one that presented it.
Yep. Yep.
It's no different to me than conflict of interest.
Yep, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Oh, Mr. Nallon.
Yes, sorry, just,
No problem.
I was going to say nothing, but I think I have to report that I did read the book. And for any of these issues that really are hard to read, I think it's important when you see it in the context of the narrative that we often the books, and that was the case with many of there were 6 characters that intertwined. I think it was 6. I read it a long time ago when we first got it. But it's kids who read it get to see how people overcome some of those things. And I think that's an important part that's often left out when we only look at certain paragraphs and certain pages.
Thank you, Mr. Nallon. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the determination regarding the contested library book as presented in your packet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion passes 5-1.
The remainder of my requests for approval are on the screen, so I'm asking for approval of the supplemental contracts that were in your packet, the field trips and professional leaves. You did have a couple of extra field trips that came in since you received your packet. Those are highlighted on one of the sheets in front of you. We also have school fundraisers. Additionally, we have claims and payroll, 2 sets of claims, one dated March 4th, over $1.6 million. Pre-runs for January 27th through February 23rd, that's over $3.2 million, and then payroll for February 9th and February 23rd, that was about $7.5 million. And then we have approval of HVAC equipment bids for Schmidt Elementary that Dr. Bozeman had information about in your packet. We also have permission to receive bids for Envision 2030 Phase 1 CMC work, so this is not giving you a recommendation for who we're giving that bid to, but we're going to receive bids and then be able to open them up shortly. And then lastly, approval of the HB 1003 waiver resolution for the 24-25 school year. This has been an annual thing for the last few years for us. HB 1003 was legislation passed a few years ago that gave us the ability to file applications for waivers on a variety of things. The 2 that we have concentrated on, one is the ability to waive time in a manner that we can count hours versus days. We do exceed the number of minimum hours in a school day by about an hour per elementary and secondary. And that gives us some ability to then have professional development days during our contract time. So an example, during President's Day, we had a professional development day. Students were at home. We had all 2,000 plus staff members together. So we're asking to be able to do that again for next year. Additionally, we're asking for a waiver of legislation that indicates that a virtual school is to be considered a school, given its own school number, and then is required to certain reporting requirements after it exceeds 100 students. We have more than 100 students in our virtual pathway, but that number has been decreasing since COVID, and the large number that we had at one point in our virtual pathway. So we are just asking for a waiver to table that till that number evens out over a period of time to make sure that it's truly going to be a virtual school for us. So those are the 2 waiver resolutions that are in the 2 waiver provisions we have in the resolution. So asking for your approval of that too.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Do I have a motion from the board?
I move that we approve all the items under new business, number 7, letters C through I, as presented by Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions or discussion from the team?
I did have a question. Yeah. On for Dr. Bozeman, on the bids, it looked like some of the bids had come back on the Schmidt Elementary project had come back. We asked for bids on things that we didn't get any bids on. They weren't a major part of the project, but maybe some bathroom accessories and things like that.
Yeah, that's correct. Bid category 1 and 2 both received no bids, and that was actually due to some confusion with the couple of bidders. So we will, when we rolled those 2 packages into the larger package of bid categories for the rest of the renovation. So there's no risk or anything. We'll just move those categories out. The reasons the others are in there, we're just trying to get ahead of some long lead time items on the HVAC equipment. So.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve items 7, C through I. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Dr. Roberts?
Thank you.
Board input and review. We start with Mr. Bryant.
Nothing tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Major?
I'd like to thank all those who were able to travel last week to watch both of the Columbus High Schools play in the first game of the boys basketball sectionals at East Central High School. I think that watching that game, we were probably able to fill their gym up with our students and families. It was something that was really a sight to see. I wanted to give a huge thank you to the sponsors that supported the fan buses. I probably am not going to get them all, but I know Pritchett Brothers Roofing Exteriors and the Columbus Bowling Center were 2 of them that I caught that were able to provide sponsorship to allow the students to travel. That was a wonderful thing that they did. I also saw that the North Gymnastics won the regional and they're off to state, so wanted to wish them the best of luck. Thank you.
Mr. Stenner?
FFY in Columbus is nearly 100 years old now. In many communities, there are boys clubs and girls clubs. In Columbus, we have the Foundation for Youth and their facility on Hope Avenue, and programs that coordinate and cooperate with a lot of organizations in the community. I'd like to point out that they're going through a strategic planning process to help set their goals and vision for the future. The community is invited to participate. Just wanted to give a shout out to FFY and all the good work they do, and their need for community participation in their strategic planning process. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Stenner. I could not read my writing earlier when I gave an update on our superintendent process, and I left to point out in our working session yesterday, we did include Amy London, and I actually saw her in the back a minute ago, who leads our teachers union, and she was able to collect a lot of input from teachers and present that to us in terms of their input for the superintendent selection. So I much appreciated her time in presenting that to us and all of the teachers who participated to do next. So thank you for that. Mr. Grimes.
Thank you to all the community members, stakeholders that are here this evening, and also certainly those that took the time to speak. Like Mrs. Wilden said, thank you to Mrs. London and the teachers for their feedback and input regarding the superintendent search, and also thank you to the community members who took the time to fill out surveys and provide input as well. Congratulations again to Ms. Bodart and Mrs. McIntyre for their new principalships that will start next school year. Congratulations again to the 4 student athletes / wrestlers from East and North that were recognized here this evening for their accomplishments. And then lastly, just to kind of end on a positive note here, I just want to say there are lots and lots of good things going on and some very admirable accomplishments taking place right now in BCSC. And just to, as evidenced by the weekly newsletter that we go out, that goes out. And so, yeah, I just wanted to end on a little bit more of a positive upbeat. So we'll keep positive things going.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz.
I want to also do this very similar. I think it was very insightful hearing from what the public and Miss London, the teachers. I've had several talk to me personally about what they're feeling, and I can say it was heard. It was definitely well received, and appreciate all the insights. Congratulations to all those that Ms. McIntyre, Ms. Bodart, and BCSC Wrestling. And then also just thanks to all those that talked. It takes a lot to get up there. I do know, and I'll continue to challenge this board on principles. If we're going to do it this way, then we should back out of the litigation, stand by principle, take it by principle. That's where I'll stand, even though I do agree with joining the litigation. I will say, as I asked this board, I never thought books would take the highlight of 2 years or a year and a half on this role. I feel like, honestly, it's very memorable that we have the Reading Achievement Celebration picture here, and BCSC has an impending crisis. When we look at Senate, I think it's Senate Bill 1, the reading bill, I mean, we've got 300 third graders that need assistance, and we need to see a plan. We can't wait for next year. We can't, I mean, my daughter's one of them, and I can tell you right now, her teachers are having very similar struggles of like, there's 4 different systems, all of them have different criteria. I would like to see a plan here to how we're going to address that before we get to iRead next year. And that's the one thing I'd ask this board to consider requesting. I mean, we can talk about wellness clinics, we can talk about books, but at the end of the day, I think we need to see where do we need TAs, where do we need extra book buddies, where do we need these resources compiled in our Title I schools to make sure that those children are not left behind. And the Senate bill is going to force us, but it doesn't mean we can't act ahead. Get ahead now, test first graders. I mean, that was one thing that was brought up to me today. Why are we stopping at second graders? Just because that's what the state says. Test the first graders. Let's move forward. Let's get ahead of the problem.
So, you guys stole my stuff, but maybe instead of talking about books, we should talk about book buddies. Maybe that's the theme there. And I guess I will also reiterate it because it was very, very helpful to get the feedback in the superintendent search from the teachers and from the community, and I really appreciate the amount, the percent of people from both groups that actually did participate in that. And on a personal note, so some people know this, for stress reliever, I go out and walk in the woods with my tent and my food. And you'd think once I retired I wouldn't need the stress reliever anymore, but somehow I still do. So I have been talking with Nicole Cunningham from the School Foundation of how I could use that to the School Foundation's advantage. So I hike the Appalachian Trail every summer. I've actually gone from Georgia to New Hampshire. Last summer I ended at mile marker 1,875. And this summer I'm planning to do 200 miles in New Hampshire and Maine, and I will shamelessly put it out here. I have some info here if anyone is interested in donating or pledging to help the School Foundation with my hike. This was Nicole's idea to call it Dale on the Trail.